So what is going on with the San Francisco real estate market? I'm glad you asked. Obviously, we've been reading a lot in the headlines all over for the last couple of years, ever since the pandemic actually started, about this mass exodus of people leaving San Francisco. Obviously, we had the tech boom and Silicon Valley and all the major companies, Google and Apple and many of the other Facebook and Twitter and all these companies and the startup culture. And we really had a huge boom since really the 90s and that's went pretty crazy after 2008. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and so I've seen a lot of the changes in the city and throughout the Bay Area as a whole. And so starting with the pandemic and everybody working from home, you see a lot of the headlines coming in and mass exodus from San Francisco and the Bay Area because of affordability, because people are able now to work from home, not having to come into the office. Why pay all these really high prices for rent, for mortgage, when they can have a much more affordable home in a different area and still make the same or similar type of money. In addition to that, compound that with the fact that it seems to be, or at least the headlines will state, all these problems that San Francisco has with homelessness, with crime. You hear a lot of people kind of comparing it to like a Gotham, a really dystopian situation. So let's talk about all of that a little bit and just break it all down, and I'll kind of go over my predictions and what I think is happening as well. In the last couple of years, we had kind of these large major employers leave the Bay Area. So, Larry Ellison and Oracle left right across the freeway from where I live. They're in Belmont, Redwood Shores area. Tesla, obviously, moving a lot of their offices, I believe, to Texas. Those are some of the major big names that left. Now, in the city of San Francisco, let's talk about San Francisco and downtown and kind of how the crime and homelessness and all of these other things you're hearing about, how that's potentially having an effect on the exodus of retail companies now and other businesses leaving that area. One of the latest news in the headlines is Nordstrom. The flagship Nordstrom store is leaving the Westfield Mall in downtown San Francisco. I remember when they just built that mall, and I remember when Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's and all those other little stores moved out. That's a major blow. I think that's huge. That's enormous. Like, that is, when I think of downtown, when I think of Fifth and Market and Powell and that whole little pocket right there, I mean, Nordstrom is that place. Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom and those stores, that's that place. So that's such a major blow. And Nordstrom Rack as well. I mean, being somebody who's very frugal myself, I always am a Nordstrom Rack kind of guy. Nowadays, I don't even do that anymore. I shop everything online, but for the most part. But I think that's a major, major blow, and that is not something to be taken lightly. One of the things that I've been hearing on some of the podcasts that I listen to, specifically the All In podcast, that I didn't really think about, is that I guess the way that commercial leases are structured is that for all of these other smaller businesses, I don't know if Adidas is still there on Market. I haven't walked by there recently, but I remember one of my first jobs when I was 18 was working at the Adidas there on Market, and that was one of the smaller stores, and there's many, many smaller stores in the Westfield Mall. And the way that commercial leases are supposedly structured is that there is an anchor tenant, which is Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's, I presume. And that anchor tenant, if that anchor tenant leaves, then what that allows is the other smaller stores to be able to get out of their lease. That's kind of a, hey, go ahead and get out of your lease if you want to. I don't know if that's accurate. That's what I heard. So if that's the case, if everybody in Westfield Mall is tied into a lease, but the anchor tenant leaves, which is, that's the anchor tenant. That's what drives many of the other people to come to want to go to some of these smaller stores like the Foot Lockers and I don't know, I forgot what else is in there. I haven't been inside that mall for a long time. If the anchor tenant leaves and now all these other smaller stores are given a go-ahead to get out, that could be a major. I mean, that is changing downtown San Francisco from being, a regular city downtown that is bustling and thriving and, places to eat and things to do and a fun time to being, essentially like can turn into like a ghost town. And so I think that this is really, really concerning. I think this is something that we really need to take seriously. I think we really need to figure out what's going on and how we can prevent major issues from happening to our local economy in downtown San Francisco, because it is one of the world's largest tourist attractions, and one of the main places, one of the main things that people do when they go to a new city and tour it, and I can tell you this from experience with my wife, is they go to the shopping district and they go shopping and they go to that downtown area. They go there to eat, etc., etc. Let's read this little excerpt from the Chronicle. So the impending closures of 2 Nordstrom stores and Saks off 5th in downtown San Francisco have added more fuel to the debate over the role of crime in pushing retailers out of the city's core. Nordstrom said downtown changed dramatically over the past several years, impacting customer foot traffic to our stores and our ability to operate successfully, without specifically citing public safety concerns in the staff memo. Unibail Rodamco Westfield, which owns the Westfield Mall where Nordstrom is closing, was more blunt, with a spokesperson blaming the city for unsafe conditions and a lack of enforcement against rampant criminal activity. Now we're headed towards that. A lot of these people, so Nordstrom, specifically Westfield Mall's representatives, specifically blamed the crime and the city's inability or unwillingness to help prevent this crime that's happening. So theft and harassment on the streets. So that's been happening for many, many years. Growing up in San Francisco, that's not something new. All of San Francisco has had its share of homelessness and crime issues. I think there's a mix of headline, attention grabbing sensationalism that comes. That always is the case. So saying this thing that, San Francisco is turning into, this dystopian, crime-ridden hellhole. There is an aspect of that in the media of creating the sensationalism, but there also is an aspect of truth in that the city has gotten worse as far as these issues. Is this the reason why these businesses are being pushed out? A lot of people will blame this as the sole reason. I don't know if that's the case. I'm sure, like I said when I was talking earlier, I shop online now for my clothing. And I think that companies like Amazon and Shopify and other companies have made it so easy to be able to shop online for things like clothes that I used to have to go and try on, that now I have a very low risk of ordering, trying on. I don't like half the stuff or 2/3 of the stuff, and I send it back, and it doesn't cost me anything. It's not a lot of work. There's already a pre-printed label that I can send it back. So I think there's a mix of economy, technology, and the world is changing, but I don't think anything is black and white. I think everything is a gray area. So I think the increase in crime and homelessness, or at least what I perceive it to be being worse than it was 10, 20 years ago, also does have a strong effect. So in addition to this, last month, Whole Foods actually closed down its flagship store. And so I think this is a temporary closure, and they only opened the store about a year ago. So let's read what CNN, I got an article from CNN.com. So San Francisco Board of Supervisors Matt Dorsey said on Twitter that he was incredibly disappointed by the closure. Our neighborhood waited a long time for the supermarket, but we're also well aware of problems they've experienced with drug-related theft, adjacent drug markets, and the many safety issues related to them, Dorsey wrote. Appearing on CNN this morning, Wednesday, Dorsey said he's seen a lot of issues of people acting out and shoplifting at the store. Fingers crossed we can turn things around here, and I do have some optimism, but hopefully we can get this supermarket back open, he said. I believe Matt Dorsey is one of the more moderate candidates, and what we're starting to see, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, is, economics and politics obviously go hand in hand in a city. The politics in San Francisco has obviously been very, very left-wing for many, many years. We are starting to see, I believe, a little bit of a push to get back to the center. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, and I believe that will definitely will somehow affect our local economy and business and the local real estate market, which is obviously it's a real estate channel, and I want to talk about real estate, but all of these things matter. So yes, the local economy of a region is going to affect the real estate market. One comparison you hear people make is Detroit, right? Detroit used to be this bustling, I've never been to Detroit, I don't know, but this is just what I've heard from, several podcasts and commentators and things like that, is that Detroit was once this bustling, active economy and the place to be, really, because the automotive industry was there. And that was during, I think, probably, 50s, 60s, 70s. Ford and GM and Chrysler, Dodge, I don't know if GM owns Dodge. And these companies had all their manufacturing and all their C-suite executives, and everybody was there, and everything was bustling and just active and a great place. Well, now it seems like Detroit has turned into this more of a, again, I'm going to keep saying this, like this dystopian Gotham type ghost town of a place. Again, I've never been there. I don't know if that's accurate. So please don't forget to drop comments here. Be respectful, of course, but if you disagree with me, if you have another opinion, or if you have your own thoughts, I want to hear them, because I am interested in the truth, and I'm interested in learning more, and I'm interested in improving my ideology. And the only way you can do that and become a more well-rounded, educated, intelligent person is by talking to more and more people with different perspectives, experience, and understanding of things that you do not have that expertise in. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the like button and follow us. These comparisons to Detroit, I think, are, or what it is perceived in the national media of Detroit, is a little unfair at this stage of the game. But one thing that I will say is, again, somebody born and raised in San Francisco, have been through the streets, okay? I've been skateboarding in the streets of San Francisco, walking in the streets of San Francisco, hanging out with my friends in the streets of San Francisco since I was allowed to be by myself in the streets of San Francisco at about 10 years old, which is unheard of today. But even before that, walking around with my grandfather all throughout the streets. And I've seen the changes. Definitely, it has gotten worse in the perceived, with tent cities and with significant amount of homelessness, what's more significant is the number of people that are out there yelling at the top of their lungs to themselves that clearly have addiction issues, but probably some sort of really strong, serious trauma, underlying health issues that are clearly not being supported in a proper way to prevent them from being out in the street. Clearly, things have gotten worse. Like, there's no denying that. That visual difference in the crime and the homelessness and all these problems, I believe, has caused San Francisco's vibe, like the vibe of the people, to be less enthusiastic, less excited for the future, just less positive, and just more of this negative, pessimistic animosity that you hear from a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people every day, not just clients, but, I go to bars, I go to restaurants, I meet people. I'm a talker, I'm a social butterfly. I love to meet people, I love to talk to people, I love to get to know people, and I love to meet strangers and make new friends. And I talk to a lot of different people who have lived here for a long time, people who were born and raised here, of course, obviously, people from different cultures, different immigrants from different countries, people, techies and transplants and people from other areas. And I talk to all these different people, and you hear a lot of this animosity towards either the city's political leadership or the techie crowd itself and the business community, the local business community, and the issues with gentrification and all these other things. And it's just like not the vibe that it used to be. It's not as positive, not as exciting. And that's, I think, amplified significantly by the national and, to a lesser extent, the local news media that sensationalizes a lot of things, of course, but we have very serious problems, and those problems could get out of hand and much worse if we don't do something about it soon. I'm gonna pop into a couple of my predictions right now and what I believe, and then I'll kind of go into a few things. So I believe what is gonna happen is we will have a little bit of a political shift next year when I think the mayor's up for re-election, although the mayor seems to be more on that moderate wing. She's born and raised Western Addition, where I was born and raised. I guess technically I was born and raised California Pacific Medical Center, grew up in the Richmond for a little bit, but grew up most of my childhood and early teens Western Addition. She's a little bit more, it seems to be on the moderate wing of the San Francisco's political separation. And I think 8 supervisor seats or 6 supervisor seats are up for re-election. So my prediction is that a lot of the more ultra left wing folks are gonna get ousted, and we're going to see more moderate Democrats voted in who support things like more funding for the police, more support for the police, trying to figure out a way to bring businesses back and bring retail businesses specifically back to make San Francisco a little bit more of a fun, bustling, nice downtown where you have places to eat and places to shop and things to do. People who might take seriously solving these problems with the encampments, with the homelessness, with the people who are running around and yelling and being aggressive and violent. That is the biggest thing. I mean, homelessness is one thing, but I think the aggressiveness and the violence when you're walking there with a little kid or an old lady is pushing her stroller. My grandpa walks like 3 to 5 miles per day just up and down the streets of San Francisco, and I want him to be safe. A lot of people want these changes made. So I think that's going to happen. I think more YIMBY, yes in my backyard type of political leaders are going to be put in. So work from home is going to go away. I think it's already being seen as a mistake. So let's read what the San Francisco Standard has to say. In his role at Y Combinator, Gary Tan said he's been focused on bringing aspects of the startup incubator back in person. Y Combinator's last batch of participants were 86% in person, and he plans to improve that to 99 to 100% this time. Tan touted the impact that in-person conversations and meetings can create, particularly for companies in early stages of their development. Little side note, so did the Netflix CEO. Before I forget, I want to say Reed Hastings. I don't know if he's still the CEO or founder, but he also early on in the pandemic actually said how work from home is not going to work. It's ineffective. Moving on. The one team that's staring each other in the face and being able to have super high bandwidth communication, they're probably going to beat the remote team 9 times out of 10, Tan said. His comments echo a growing chorus of business leaders who have started to push back against widespread remote work in the tech sector. Mark Zuckerberg cited productivity improvements from in-person work in his note announcing the layoff of 10,000 workers. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman called the industry's rush to embrace permanent remote work one of its worst mistakes in a long time. In another recent example, newly appointed Lyft CEO David Risher paired his decision to lay off around a quarter of the company's workforce with a directive to get employees back in the office at least 3 days a week. My dream is that we're going to fill every single new and old office building that's empty right now, and we're going to fill it with brand new companies creating new products, maybe powered by AI, Tan said. These are things that are going to touch the entire world, and we're going to build it right here. I think work from home is going to continue to be phased out, and people are going to be required to come back to the office. And there's a significant amount of office space in San Francisco. And a lot of that office space, I think this is a record time where it's something like 35% of office space in downtown San Francisco sits empty. The big news with the Wells Fargo building, let's actually go back here in my notes. Less than a year after coming to market with $160 million asking price, the office tower at 550 California Street, owned by Wells Fargo, is likely to sell for about 1/4 of that price, according to a source close to the deal. The bank is currently evaluating several offers in the low $100 per square foot range, or around $40 million for the 355,000 square foot, 13-story financial district tower it bought for $108 million in 2005. So office space is becoming cheaper and cheaper. What I think, I don't know the commercial local bank situation that's happening. Specifically, you should watch probably some other podcasts of people who understand that a little bit better than me. But my feeling is, and my prediction is that with work from home being phased out and eliminated, and the political climate changing in San Francisco, it will be kind of a bit of a perfect storm to cause some other companies, some AI startups or thriving small AI companies specifically, because we still have this AI boom happening now in San Francisco, which I hear about, and many other startups. You still have that startup energy, you still have that feel, and I think a lot of people are going to, suck up the vacuum or enter that area, find that opportunity for cheaper office space and fill up a lot of this office space. And my prediction is within the next 5 to 10 years, San Francisco's downtown will turn around and the real estate market will be, it still is thriving, but will continue to be thriving during that time. Okay, so let's jump in a couple of more things that I wanted to talk about here. So San Francisco may start making it easier actually to build after many, many years of making it almost impossible. So anecdotal story is that talking to anybody in San Francisco, it's always been impossible to get any kind of projects approved. Now, and for many years, I think leading up to the financial crisis and afterwards, building in San Francisco was very, very low. I think at record lows compared to what it has been in previous decades. And I think there's a lot of, that has a lot to do with a lot of red tape, just ridiculous regulations that prevent that. It being not profitable for a lot of companies with those regulations. And also a lot of corruption and having to pay people. And we've heard about that, the corruption in San Francisco city government related to that. It looks like Mayor London Breed and other San Francisco leaders are looking at easing some of San Francisco's strict building regulations to allow for more construction and development downtown. The Real Deal writes, the shift couldn't come at a better time. CBRE data show the city's downtown in the first quarter of 2023 reached a record 30% or 35 million square feet of office space available for direct or sublease. Recent commercial deals have been lackluster, with volume in the city dropping more than 70% year over year and only 4 commercial deals in the city over 10 million. Values have dropped precipitously as well. A North Financial District 13-story office building owned by Wells Fargo looks like that it traded 1/4 of the bank's original 160 million ask in the low hundreds per square foot. The article later goes on to say that several people in the development industry are seeing a much more receptive city staff. So I think that if San Francisco eases its burdens, regulations, makes it easier and more profitable to build downtown, that will not only add a lot more jobs, but it will create a lot more of a thriving downtown and just a lot more thriving of San Francisco in general. Okay, last piece of news that happened is First Republic Bank closure in San Francisco. So what does that mean for the San Francisco Bay Area real estate market? So SF Standard writes, First Republic knew the local business assets of the Bay Area better than anyone else, said Bora Ozturk, a principal of March Capital Management, a San Francisco-based real estate investment and development firm. Ozturk recalled approaching more than a dozen banks to try and finance the acquisition of a small commercial property and turn it into a specialty food store. First Republic was the institution that made the deal possible, he said. They are not a good part of the ecosystem. They were the ecosystem, Ozturk said. There was very specialized lending they understood, like the exact business of a local coffee shop in San Francisco. So as a local residential real estate agent, one thing I can tell you that a lot of us are very bummed about First Republic Bank closing. It was really a cool community bank. You know, I knew a number of people that I grew up with that were lenders, that were top management, that went far in the bank. And it really is a blow because a lot of those people, actually similar with Silicon Valley Bank when that went down, but First Republic hits a little bit harder to my career in my industry specifically because oftentimes First Republic Bank would offer really, really great products that nobody else would. Like oftentimes their mortgage rates on 30-year fixed or all mortgage products would be like 1/4 of a point cheaper than everyone else. Right? They would give special incentives to, I think it was like Google employees or other employees that made it even better. They would do loans that other people wouldn't do. They had this Eagle Community mortgage program when interest rates went up last year for, I think it was like 3 to 6 months. When interest rates were hovering around almost the 4.5-5% range, they were doing 3.79 for specific areas in Daly City and Portola neighborhood. And by the way, you heard that right. I called it Portola neighborhood. Just so you know, if you're a native of San Francisco, if you're a native of the Portola neighborhood, otherwise known as Portola, you call it Portola. The natives of that neighborhood call it Portola. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I never knew that until I called it Portola and somebody corrected me and said it's called Portola. And I said, no, it's Portola. And he said, I was born and raised here, and it's called Portola, and that's what we call it. Not the same thing as Portola Street, right? Or Portola Drive or whatever the term is in the market. I worked on Roundtable on Portola for like 1.5 years when I was 18. And so anyways, that was a little bit funny. But anyways, I digress. So the San Francisco real estate market is really mourning this loss of First Republic Bank that's eaten up by JP Morgan Chase, which is not as competitive in the new home purchase market. Admittedly for them, they're a little bit more conservative, a little bit more risk averse than First Republic probably was. And so, yeah, we're really mourning it. It's really a bummer. It's very sad. Life goes on. Just if you know anybody who works at First Republic, just, give them a shout out and help them out, get figure out what their next steps are in their career. And I will always miss going into a First Republic Bank. One thing I loved was the fresh cookies that they would bake when you come through. And they were delicious. So on that note, thank you again for watching this video. I know it was a long one. I'm trying out this new concept of where I'm going to go on these long rants, give you my opinions, give you my thoughts. And if you're still around, you're still sticking around, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Actually, Casey, my camera guy, is like, hey, we're at 28 minutes. And I'm like, well, hey, listen, I feel like I'm giving valuable information. I feel like what I'm talking about is important. And I feel like the idea that we have to make videos short just simply so, because people's attention span is low. Well, hey, listen, I don't watch CNN. I don't watch MSNBC. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch those short soundbite things. When I'm interested in a topic, I listen to a long 2, 3, 4 hour podcast. Lex Friedman, sometimes Joe Rogan, sometimes, some of these other folks that are out there in different spectrums of the political realm. Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, listen to them. A lot of different people to get different perspectives, different ideas, and I really like long form content. So if you care about local San Francisco Bay Area real estate, a little bit maybe about politics, although I'm not really going to necessarily take a side. I feel like I'm just going to I'm more of an objective, middle of the road kind of a person and see benefits and negatives to all these things. If you're interested in that and you like this, please give me a shout. Please subscribe. Please share my channel. Please like it. And please let me know how I can improve so that you want to watch this and want to listen to it and your friends want to watch this and listen to this. And then, I can improve my skills and I can make this a better platform for you. Thanks again.